It's still the month for celebrating exceptional women and sharing their brilliant views on how to deal with issues of gender discrimination. On today's episode of the program, Law Weekly chats with the former president of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Boma Ayomide Alabi, OON. We also feature some of the stories from the judicial panels inquiring into abuses by men of the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, and the police generally, plus our recap of some of the top stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shoyeli. Let's begin straight away with our conversation. My guest, Boma Ayomide Alabi, has extensive experience in corporate commercial practice, spanning about 30 years. She served as the president of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association from 2011 to 2013, the first woman president in the over 50-year history of the Association of Lawyers from 54 countries. Boma was elevated to the rank of SAN in 2020. She shares with Law Weekly her thoughts on the stereotypes and challenges women face, and more importantly, what can be done to challenge same.
Well, you see, discrimination is present all the time. People discriminate on different levels. Certainly, gender is the most obvious one. And you have a duty to yourself not to internalize that discrimination and aid them by not stepping up, because a lot of women have been conditioned to feel like second-class citizens, feel like, we don't belong at the table because we're women. And so the first step is to take that conditioning, reset your own mindset, and say, no, my gender has nothing to do with what I can achieve, what I do in my day job, what table I can sit at, so that you actually make an attempt. Because the first step is to take the first step, if you know what I mean. And many of us don't, because we've been conditioned to think that it's not appropriate, and we shouldn't. Having said that, then you have to deal with the external discrimination and gender, boxing, so to speak. And the way to deal with that is realize they're ignorant, and they've also been conditioned to be misogynists. The patriarchal society we live in is a misogynistic society, if you know what I mean, because by virtue of your gender, they feel you shouldn't own land, you shouldn't inherit, you should be inherited, you shouldn't speak, you shouldn't break kola nuts. All sorts of cultural norms that just say women are not good enough and they're second-class citizens. And that comes from patriarchy. And that comes from across the board, our culture. Religion also reinforces this. And it's wrong. So understand that they've been conditioned to think that we are not able and not worthy and have nothing to contribute to the table. So there's no point having a woman there. When they do, it's all tokenism, woman leader, leading women. So you're not really at the table, you're just by the sideline. Or you might be there doing the catering. So don't allow them put you into those boxes. Sit at the table, demand your place at that table on equal terms, not on gender terms.
I hear what you say about the norms, the culture, the tradition, religion that reinforces all the gender roles and the stereotypes. But what can we do about it as a nation?
Well, we can start with some affirmative action. And when I say affirmative action, I'm not talking about the sort of thing we currently have, where we have, you have to have tribal representation or regional representation, regardless of merit. No, do not sacrifice merit. Like I said, we don't want to be at that table because we're women. We also do not want to be excluded because we're women. So the sort of action I'm talking about is where both men and women qualify. Then you say, well, we will have 50% women and 50% men. It's only fair.
So that's a deliberate action.
That's a deliberate action to ensure. Look at what's happening in Rwanda. Rwanda has almost gender parity in all walks of life. It's an African country. It also had that patriarchal societal norms that we're talking about. It took a genocide to achieve that change. Nigeria should not wait for a genocide. We can do this. We can't disable half of our population and expect to do well. And if you look at what, the statistics, where women are on boards, the boards perform so much better. It's tracked, it is recorded, it is fact. So we need our women on the table, particularly with all the challenges we're facing as a nation, our security challenges, economic challenges. We're challenged on every front. And then rather than putting our best foot forward, we're disabling one half of our workforce, one half of our talent, one half of our, the best of the best that we have. I give this example. I say, think about a bird with two wings. Without one, how is it going to ever fly properly? That's what patriarchal societies do when they, put women down and refuse to accept that women's rights are human rights. We're all human. Full stop. Our gender should not define us, define our role in society at all.
The discrimination between men and women when it comes to inheritance rights, and you've talked about it, it's still a major problem in our communities. How do you think that we should be dealing with it as a country? Will legislation help?
Well, we have a decision of the Supreme Court of Nigeria that says harmful traditional practices are unconstitutional. And certainly discriminating against women on the basis of gender for inheritance is a harmful traditional practice. That's been established. So it's not about changing the law. It is about awareness, education, and getting the buy-in of the community. So you have remote villages where people, if a woman attempts to enforce that right, no one will help her. Her family and community will say, oh no, this isn't what we've done for generations, and nobody can change it. You go to the law enforcement agencies, they're made up of men with the same mindset, from the same traditions and customs. They will also tell you it's not done. And therefore, they need to be educated. The Nigerian police needs to be educated to understand that regardless of your personal opinion, the law is the law, and it must be enforced. And if this is said to be a person's right, whether you buy into it or not, you have to do your job.
Obviously, we can't legislate people's attitudes and how they react.
No, you can't, which is why government has to have a deliberate policy to educate. And unfortunately, the executive arm is also largely made up of men with the same mindset. So it's an uphill task, but it's a necessary one. Because until we get there, we will always be running at half our potential as a nation. Look at the countries where women are fully empowered and how well they're doing. Look at this pandemic, the COVID situation. The countries that had women at the forefront lost the least number of their citizens. Fact. The countries where women are, empowered and treated the same as men. We're not asking to be treated better than men. We're just saying, forget our gender and deal with us on merit. Those countries are doing far better. Germany has been led by a woman for 18 years. Compare Germany to Nigeria. And within Africa, Liberia had a huge civil war. Liberia was on its knees. It started from nothing. And you can see where it is now. So you have so many examples where women are in the mix, on the table. It simply makes things work better.
Because I've heard some people say that, is gender equality even possible? What would you say to people who say things like that?
I hear them. Of course, I think it's ludicrous. And sometimes I'm just astounded by the lack of connecting the dots. But there's so many of them. that all I can do and say to them is educate yourself. Look within your space, because in your space, you're surrounded by strong women. Your mother, educated or not, whether she had a career outside the home and was a homemaker, you will see the strength of the individual. It's not based on gender. If they look inwards and look around them, they very quickly realize that that notion is simply ludicrous, which is why it's education that will bring the change.
Talking about education and taking deliberate steps, I've heard some people say women should be at the forefront of pushing for change, maybe perhaps by asking political parties to give women more seats, more opportunities for elective offices. Do you think that women should collectively come together to push for this change?
You know, it's a chicken and egg situation. It was, the recent International Women's Day. I was watching the National Assembly, and male representatives standing up and saying to women, well, women should do this, women should do that. Excuse me, who are your constituents? They're at least 50% women. So you actually should be doing what you're saying women should do. How many women are there in that National Assembly in the first place? Women should advocate for a law. You disable them, and then the victim should somehow resolve the problem. You can see it doesn't make sense. The power, the ability to bring about this change lies with those who control our economy, who control governance, who control all the tools, the equipment we need to achieve it. And right now, who's in control? It's the men. So you can't ask women to make this change. You've got to have the buy-in of our brothers, our fathers, our colleagues, our husbands, in order for it to happen.
Let's talk about the legal profession. Is there discrimination on grounds of gender in the profession?
The legal profession is a profession where, as with all other professions, it's impacted by the societal norms and expectations. So women are the caregivers in our society. This is the way it's always been, and that's the expectation. And again, it's the gender thing we're talking about. If you go into certain areas of the law, practice requires you to travel around a lot. It requires you to do things at short notice, because you effectively are a hired gun. And your client has a problem, you get a call at midnight, you have to be boarding a plane at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's difficult for a lot of women to keep up with those demands because of the societal role they're expected to play. And so you find that is why there's so few women who have achieved the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in comparison to the men. It isn't that women are not as good. It's not that we're not as talented. It is simply the nature of the work and the societal expectations and trying to bring those together. Women have done better in the judiciary than they have in practice. Women have also done well in commercial practice, in-house, in academia, more so than they have in advocacy and litigation because of the nature of the work. Having said that, it's not peculiar to Nigeria. It's also the case in England and Wales. It's the case in most Commonwealth jurisdictions, because this falling back on women as caregivers is a societal norm across the board.
So what would be your advice for young women who are struggling to juggle career, family life, and every other thing?
Well, first of all, the young women who are not married, choose your partners carefully, choose your spouses carefully. If you want to have a career, don't choose a spouse or a husband who expects you to pound yam every day and cook fresh okra soup every day. Obviously, that's time consuming. And that sort of person, you're going to have constant friction. It won't work. You're either going to have to give up your career or you're going to have to give up your marriage. So choose wisely, choose an enabler, choose a partner, somebody who's willing to, wade in with you and do whatever is necessary so that both of you can have your career and have a home. If you've already made a choice, then, tough if you've made the wrong choice. But getting the balance is, delegation is the key. You can pay for assistance with the tasks that you don't personally have to do, because you've got to get a balance. That work-life balance is really important for your health and for you to really excel.
Welcome back. The Judicial Panel of Inquiry into Abuse by the Police and other related matters have been busy during the week. Let's bring you some of the stories from there.
The Ekiti state government has taken the fast lane in compensating victims of police brutality and abuses of human rights as an aftermath of the EndSARS protests. Though the panel has not ended its sitting, the state government says it must register its deep concerns and willingness to compensate victims without delay. A total of 7.4 million naira has been presented to 24 victims of police brutality in the state. During the presentation, the state governor, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, apologized to the victims for the hurt and negative psychological effects of their experiences. He says beyond the compensations, institutions are now being strengthened for rights to be enhanced and protected.
It is my hope that this monetary compensation will contribute to repairing your financial loss and all the psychological and physical injuries that you may have suffered.
In Enugu State, Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi has assured residents of expeditious appropriate action against those who hijacked the peaceful EndSARS protest in the state. He said this when he received the report from the 9-man administrative panel of inquiry constituted to ascertain victims of the hijacked EndSARS protest in the state. The governor is optimistic that the findings and recommendations of the panel, as well as the consequential government action, will mitigate the pains of the loss of lives and destruction of property of private citizens and security personnel. And the families of 6 persons killed in 2005 at the Akpo area of Abuja are asking the National Human Rights Commission Independent Investigation Panel to compel the police to pay them a compensation of 1.2 billion naira for the 6 victims. At the resumed sitting of the panel in Abuja, lawyer to the Akpo 6 victims insists that the 18 million naira paid to the families of the victims in 2018 is grossly inadequate. He appeals to the panel to review the compensation that was paid in 2018, saying the victims were extrajudicially murdered in their prime.
The National Judicial Council has elevated 18 justices to the Court of Appeal. The council also deliberated on 24 petitions written against different justices. At the end of its 94th meeting, the council resolved to send strong warning letters to 2 of the justices, while 1 was placed on the watch list. After a meeting held on March 17 and 18, the NJC, under the chairmanship of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, recommended the appointment of 26 justices. 18 of them were recommended for appointment to the Court of Appeal. They include Justice Muslim Hassan, Justice Sibyl Nwaka, Justice Adebukola Banjoko, and Justice Peter Afen. The council also considered and recommended justices as heads of courts in Rivers, Nasarawa, Kogi, Jigawa, Ebonyi, and Delta states. All recommended candidates will be sworn in after approval by the President and their state governors and confirmation by the National Assembly and the respective state houses of assembly. In the statement issued by the NJC spokesman, Soji Oye, the council also issued a strict warning to 2 judges, Justice Mufta Olokoba and Justice Michael Akitunde Savage, both of the Lagos State High Court. Justice Olokoba was reprimanded and put on the watch list of the council for his failure to deliver judgment within the period of 90 days, and Justice Savage was reprimanded for not being in charge of his courts. Meanwhile, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olumide Akpata, has reportedly said that he was disappointed that important legal issues occasionally put to some of the nominees could not be answered. Mr. Akpata was said to have made this comment at the NBA NEC meeting, which recently ended in Uyo. And on the home stretch, we bring you a recap of some of the activities from the courtroom.
We begin with the report that the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has dismissed the alleged degree certificate forgery suit instituted by the All Progressives Congress, APC, against the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki. Presiding Judge Justice Stephen Ada dismissed the suit for lacking in merit and awarded 250,000 naira cost in favor of Governor Obaseki. Justice Stephen Ada held that the lower court was right in its findings and conclusion in the APC suit. He also upheld the testimony of Deputy Registrar Mr. Abayomi Ajayi, who confirmed that Governor Obaseki attended the University of Ibadan in 1976. He further held that the evidence of a Deputy Registrar was direct in showing that Obaseki did not forge any certificate he submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to secure his clearance for participation in the governorship election. In dismissing the suit, the court awarded a cost of 250,000 naira in favor of Governor Obaseki and another 50,000 naira each in favor of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and INEC. Still in Abuja, a federal high court has ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission to declare Senator Ifaye Ararume as the winner of the December 5, 2020 by-election for the Imo North Senatorial District. Justice Taiwo Taiwo, who delivered the judgment, also ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission to issue a certificate of return to Senator Ifaye Ararume within 72 hours. Justice Taiwo also dismissed the preliminary objection challenging the jurisdiction of the court to entertain Senator Ararume's suit filed by the APC and Mr. Chukwuma Ibezim. But hours after the judgment, an Imo State High Court sitting in Owerri, the state capital, issued an order of interim injunction to the Independent National Electoral Commission, restraining it from recognizing Senator Ifaye Ararume as the winner of the December 2020 Imo North senatorial candidate of the All Progressives Congress. The court also stopped INEC from issuing him a certificate of return pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice in the suit. The court's ruling followed an application by motion ex parte brought before it by the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Mr. Kelechi Soribe, and some others. The same Justice Taiwo has taken judicial notice of the letter from the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation taking over the prosecution of a former governor of Imo State, Mr. Ikedio Hakim. He is accused of threatening and harassing one Mrs. Chinyere Amuchenwa. The court had earlier slated Thursday, the 18th of March, for the former governor to be arraigned, but when the matter was called, a counsel from the office of the AGF, Bagudu Sani, informed the court that the office of the AGF had taken over the case and had notified the office of the Inspector General of Police. Justice Taiwo Taiwo has deferred the arraignment of the former governor to May 6, 2021, to enable parties file and serve written addresses on the propriety of the office of the AGF taking over the case from the police. And the controversies surrounding the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 are far from over, as the Christian Association of Nigeria has gone to court to challenge the legality or otherwise of some provisions of the Act. The suit was filed by the Incorporated Trustees of Christian Association of Nigeria, the Corporate Affairs Commission, and the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and is pending before the Federal High Court in Abuja. CAN said it resolved to go to court after all attempts to convince the federal government why it should not intervene or interfere with the management of the church in the country through any of its agencies failed. And we round off with a report that the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has fixed March 24th for the former Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Honorable Adeyemi Ekuforiji, to open his defense in an alleged 338 million naira money laundering trial. Counsel to the former Speaker, Mr. Dele Adeshino, had asked the court for a short date to either open his defense or, in the alternative, to file a no-case submission. The judge granted his request. Ekuforiji is standing trial alongside his former personal assistant on a 54-count charge bordering on the alleged offenses. They had both pleaded not guilty.
And that's our program this week. Don't forget that you can find these and past episodes of the program on our YouTube page. I'm Shola Shieli. Thank you for watching and see you next week.